What's the most important resource that you have? If you really thought about this deeply, I think you'd come to the same conclusion that Joey and I did. It's time. In our newest book, What's Without Wall Street, the 3 steps to financial freedom through passive income, we talk about how are we tracking that time? What is the thing that we can do to get more of that time back?
That's right. If you've ever been listening to our podcast and thought, man, it would be amazing if I could take all the things that you guys have learned over the last 10 years and just summarize them, put them in some way to easily digest them and take action, that's what this book is all about. You're not going to want to miss it. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/new book and get your copy today. Wealth Without Wall Street Tribe, get ready to start profiting from student housing with our good friend, Ryan Chaw. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Joey and Russ? Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
Yes. Ryan, I don't know if you ever would have wanted me as a tenant when I was in college, right? We were probably not the we were probably not the ideal tenant. But man, I'm super interested to learn about this because this is something unique. I don't think we've had over 500 episodes that we've gone into this specific space, and definitely not the way that you do it. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about why you love the student housing business so much.
Yeah, so the most obvious thing is it does make a lot more cash flow. Usually I rent out my room for $600 to $700 per month. And if you have like a 6-bedroom house, which is a typical house for my student housing, you multiply 6 times 600, that's like $3,600 up to $4,200 if you're charging $700 per bedroom. And these houses, usually I buy them from $200,000 to $300,000. So the cash flow is anywhere from the lowest being $1,500 per month to the highest going up to $3,500. Our highest one, the 11-bedroom house, makes $4,000 a month about. The great part for the landlord, but for the students, is also great because they're saving half of their money by renting off campus versus renting on campus. Usually on campus charges like $1,200 per month. Plus you have to pay for a meal plan versus off campus, free parking, $600 to $700 per month. And they get to live with all their buddies. Typically I'll have one person who has like 4 or 5 friends and they're like, yes, we'll take the whole house. And they're super happy about it because they save a lot of money. It's very affordable for them.
Man, that's super exciting. Like, I think all of us looking to get into the real estate rental world, and we've considered, hey, I buy a house for $100,000 to $150,000, I net maybe $250 to $300 a month, or I have to go into the midterm or short-term rental space in order to up the ante. But you're saying no, there's an option for still long-term rental, a lot less maintenance and active, day-to-day with guests kind of thing you think about in the midterm and short-term rental space. And you can clear $1,500 to $3,000 or $4,000 a month. That's outstanding. How did you get into this space?
I started off in California. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I actually retired last year after working about 8 years as a pharmacist. And I basically worked a bunch of overtime, double shifts. I worked 14 to 16 hours to save as much money as I could for the first property. Once I got that first property, I was able to reinvest the cash flow, which is about $1,500 per month towards the next one. And every time I purchased a property, my cash flow went up. So I was able to buy the next one even sooner. So I basically bought one property a year in California. And I was able to make anywhere from, like I said, $1,500 to $2,000 per month in cash flow on a 30-year mortgage. And
hold on, Ryan. One thing before you keep going. So what made you decide that this was going to be your strategy? Like you just jumped to how you bought the first one, but I mean, most people don't think about this as their first opportunity.
Yeah. So when I was in college, I actually had a friend who did this. His aunt bought him a place nearby college and he rented out to all of his college buddies. And not only was he living for free, but he was also getting cash flow on top of it. So I was like, okay, why don't I try this myself? And I'll try it at my alma mater college where I went to pharmacy school and just rent to pharmacy school's kids. So my very first house, I basically rented out to pharmacy school kids and dental kids. And it just, ever since then, I kind of fell in love with it because the tenant base is really great. These people are very focused on getting their doctorate degree or their graduate degree. And they're mainly at the house to sleep and study. And, they take care of the house and everything. So ever since then, I just been scaling it. And now I have about 75 tenants.
So therein lies the difference between renting it to me. Like I was never on the verge of getting my doctorate. And anything at school, right? There was some outside maybe doctorates happening, but I would say that maybe there is the reason why you're probably having more success. So is that the model that you're finding graduate students to rent to, and not just your ordinary beer guzzling, recent high school grad?
Yeah, definitely. At the very beginning, it's very important to decide on the best college you can find. And usually I choose top colleges on the U.S. News top college list. If we're thinking about like Ivy League colleges like Johns Hopkins or Yale, they also offer a lot of graduate programs. And what's really interesting about these colleges is they offer a lot of housing for undergrads, but they don't offer like any housing for grad students. And so a lot of these colleges, they have 2,000, 3,000 grad students where just no on-campus housing is offered. So they have to live off campus. And what better place to stay than with a group of friends at a single-family home nearby campus?
So besides the location, so if someone's trying to get into this space, obviously location is important. If they don't have a good grad program, that's probably not on your list. What are some of the other things you look for in terms of location?
Yeah, so I definitely want to do the research to where students like to stay. If you think about somebody who's looking to stay off campus, where are they gonna go to as a resource to find off campus housing? Well, they're gonna ask the upperclassmen. They're gonna say, hey, you've been at this school for a while. Where did you stay off campus, right? So you really have to figure out what students are talking about by word of mouth. For me, specifically, there's like two neighborhoods that I like to invest in, Little Italy and Cleveland Heights, where I invest in Ohio, because I did the research to go through student forums. Reddit is a great place to see what people are talking about through the grapevine as the de facto place to, invest in for student housing. And so I start there. And if I invest in those specific neighborhoods, as my house pops up in those specific neighborhoods, I'll usually buy it if it, makes sense number-wise. And when students hear about where my house is located, a little light bulb will go off in their head like, hey, this is the place that my friend, the neighborhood that my friend was talking about that I should stay at.
So you just mentioned a couple of neighborhoods. So it's like, are you finding these properties off market, or what is your buying process?
Yeah, so I do definitely find some off market. Usually go to a local realtor, and I'll kind of tell them that, hey, I'm basically an out-of-state real estate investor. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be close to campus. I'm looking to have enough square footage, typically 1,800 square foot or more, so that I can get 6 people at the house or put in extra bedrooms so I can put those people in the house. And I want to also be in a safe neighborhood, of course, have enough parking for, let's say, 4 cars in case the students need to drive to campus. But a lot of students, they take the shuttle or they might even bike to campus. So you may or may not have to worry about that. But those are some things that I look for sure.
You mentioned that once you kind of determine the location, and I love the fact that you kind of have your ear to the ground, like what are the students saying that they want to be at, and then you just go and find those. What outside of the location, you then talked about getting the numbers right, and you mentioned like trying to get 6 people into the house. What other things factor into the number section?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously the price of the house makes a difference. If I can get a duplex in the mid $300,000 to the mid $400,000 range, usually I'm able to make enough cash flow if I can get, like, let's say 5 bedrooms on each side of the duplex, 4 or 5 bedrooms on each side of the duplex. For single family homes, I really want it to be 1,800 square foot or more. The rule is divide the total square footage by 300, and that's how many bedrooms you can get in. So if you have a 1,500 square foot house, divide that by 300, that means it can be 5 bedrooms at a minimum. 1,800 square foot, divide that by 300, you can get 6 bedrooms. So I really, again, aim for that 1,800 square foot or more with plenty of space to add those bedrooms so that I can get my rental income to $3,600 to $4,200 a month, depending on how much I charge per bedroom. And that will create usually $1,500 to $2,500 on the higher end, $3,500 or $4,000 per month in cash flow.
So did you just say that you're basically taking the square footage divided by 300, and that's telling you how many bedrooms you can get? That's crazy. So is there any sort of regulations, ordinances, zoning, all that kind of stuff that plays into this? Like you start to think about, you're going into neighborhoods potentially, do they have rules governing this kind of stuff, and how easy or hard is it to navigate that stuff?
Yeah, so you specifically want to look for city code around occupancy limits, because some cities will have a limit on unrelated tenants. However, some of those ordinances are a little bit outdated, and a lot of times you can do something like a change of use permit where you change the use of the house to be a rooming house or a boarding house, and then you're able to put in as many bedrooms as you can, obviously making sure you don't violate fire code or building code laws. So I highly recommend always like contacting a local real estate attorney in that area and say, hey, this is what I want to do. We could have up to 5 or 6 unrelated tenants here. Do I need to get a special permit? Do I need to get like a change of use? Do I need to do a zoning variance or something like that? Or maybe I just need to be in a specific zoning. Maybe if I'm in a multifamily zoning, I'm able to do it. Right.
What about, talk about like how you're looking for these properties to, it sounds like, to make interior changes to add additional bedrooms. Like, is there something that you're specifically looking for in a house that you're like, ooh, that is a great buy if they have, for instance, a garage or a big dining room or something? Like, what are some of those key things you look for?
Yeah, so the easiest is obviously having a big living room, dining room, or family room. And if you have all 3 of those, you can usually turn like let's say the living room and the family room into bedrooms and keep the dining room as the common space, because students don't need a huge amount of common space, generally speaking. They usually hang out most of the time in their bedrooms. Because, you know, we all have Netflix nowadays and they're streaming on their computers instead of hanging out in the, you know, on the couch in the common area, especially like Gen Z people. So usually I can easily convert those ones. Sometimes I just have to put in furniture. Other times I might have to put up some framing, drywall, and a doorway. So it costs anywhere from maybe $1,500 to $2,500 per wall that you put up. And so it's pretty cheap to put these renovations in. But if the house doesn't have that, yes, it's possible to do an attic conversion or a garage conversion. However, those are generally a little bit more expensive. Anywhere from maybe for an attic conversion, maybe 10 to 15,000 or so. And then for a garage conversion, those can go up to 20K or so at least. So it just really depends.
Stallion, my last year in college, I had a mean garage conversion room. Like, dude, it was like the bat cave because it had no windows in it, man. You went in there, just sleep for 14 hours. It was awesome.
Yeah. What I would recommend for that, actually, since you mentioned it, is if you have like a living room, dining room, instead of making the garage the bedroom, make the living room and dining room the bedrooms, and then convert the garage to the new common area. So basically, it's so much simpler. You don't have to meet all these regulations for a bedroom. It's easy to just put a couch in the garage, put a TV or whatever, and that will be the new common area for the students. Rather than having to convert the whole garage into a bedroom, just convert the other common areas into bedrooms.
If you've listened to our show for any length of time, you've heard us talk about infinite banking and how we were able to use that concept to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. But it's just not that easy to figure out, how does this all connect into my own personal system?
Stallion, that's why we created the passive income operating system, bro. It shows you how to turn active income into passive income. It makes all the steps come together. If you would like to get access to it as a podcast listener, we've never given this away in public before, go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/PIOS. There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, pop quiz day. Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
I think we learned this, Joey and I, trying to convert a house one time. You have to have all these different fire easements, right? You have to have a window or a door that leads to the outside from the room. So if you're in a garage and it's converted, doesn't have a window, that's going to be much harder they're
Exactly.
converting some of that. Yeah, that makes total sense. So talk a little bit about some worst case scenarios here, right? Like, I mean, you've painted a pretty good picture, but we know that there always are issues as you start dealing. I brought up the thought of, well, what about these college students? Well, you kind of said, but most of them are grad students, so they're kind of a little more tame at this point. They're focused on getting their degree and getting out and start making money. But there obviously got to be some issues. Talk a little bit about some of the fleas that come with this process.
Yeah, for sure. So my very first property, I had several problems with it, and it almost it really discouraged me because this was my first property, and I had to spend a lot of money to fix all the things that were going on there. The first thing that happened was there was a sewage line break on me, and I didn't realize that you can do like a sewage lateral line inspection during the home inspection phase. And so I had to I got this call from one of my tenants saying that there was sewage that was bursting out of the kitchen sink. It's all over the kitchen floor. It's backing up in the showers and the bathrooms as well. And obviously it smelled like sewage. And I was like, oh, shoot. So I had to call a plumber, sanitary crew, clean that up. We had to replace the whole line, which was about $9,000 for everything. Had to put in a sump pump and everything as well. And so I was like, oh, man. Not only that, I also had to put in a new HVAC just because the current one wasn't working. It was a 100-year-old house, so that one cost me $15,000. And then I also had a party tenant to make things worse. So pretty much everything went wrong on that house. Basically, I got a call from the cops saying that this party tenant, he was playing really loud music and he was smoking a lot of weed when it was not legal in California. And so I was like, oh, shoot, I have to deal with this too. And what I realized is this tenant that was smoking weed at my house, he was actually in the same fraternity as me. So I knew that he was kind of a party type tenant, but I brought him in anyways because I was very desperate. And so nowadays I really screen my tenants. I figure out, what major are they going for? What are the studies like? Is it going to be, they have to work really hard to get their degree. Those are the type of people I really want at my house. So all of that happened on my first house, but obviously I didn't give up. Because I had a grandpa who bought real estate and he created generational wealth for our family. He was not only able to retire early with the rental income he was making, but he was also able to help cover part of my college tuition and my brother's as well.
Talk a little bit about kind of what's the process look? So, all right, you said, hey, I'm looking for houses in these specific areas. I'm looking for houses that have these many bedrooms, this many square footage, so I can hit the numbers I'm wanting to do. I'm looking for tenants who, really are more focused on their studies than they are, partying and everything else. What's the back end process? Sort of like you started to allude to it. Sounds like you're doing a lot of this stuff yourself. Talk about your processes.
Yeah. So similar to how when you move into an Airbnb, you have a list of tenant house rules, move-in instructions, all of that. I do provide that for all the tenants, and I have them basically initial, like, these are the house rules. I will go ahead and abide by them. I also do little things like I will have, for my larger houses, I might have 2 sets of washer and dryers, maybe 2 sets of refrigerators, just because the most common things that students usually will fight over, if they do fight, is fridge space, washer and dryer usage, and then the last one is dirty dishes in the sink. So I always have like a sign over the sink, like, please do not leave any dishes in the sink, put it in the dishwasher right away. That way students aren't like walking into a stack of dirty dishes and it smells and everything, right? So that's like my number one rule, right? And what's great about this is if some of the rules are broken, I usually empower the tenant. I'll say, hey, you guys are adults now, or you're young adults, right? So go ahead and have a face-to-face discussion with the person you're complaining about, come up with a plan that you guys can both implement in the next 2 weeks. And after the next 2 weeks, if you still have issues, come back to me. 99% of the time, they don't ever come back to me. If they do, I can always have the parent as a backup. Because what's great about student housing is the parent is the one paying the rent. You never get unpaid rent, but also they're a good authority figure for the student. So if the student is really acting up, you can have a quick conversation with the parent, and it works. That's how I basically solved that party tenant issue, as I ended up talking to the parent for about 20 minutes or so, and they straightened them out.
Super interesting. Now, one of the things that you haven't mentioned that in my brain seems like, logistical issue is being paid per bedroom is not as simple as just getting a check every month or getting an ACH or whatever. How do you handle that logistically?
Yeah, so nowadays I have some backend processes. I have 75 tenants, so obviously that requires a good amount of bookkeeping. I have software that I use. There's a lot of them out there. There's like Tenant Cloud, for instance. There's BuildDM. You can even just set up QuickBooks. So I have a bookkeeper who kind of logs into all the utility companies and he downloads all the bills and sends them out. He also checks if they paid them and everything like that. And then he sends out reminders. But I also have an executive assistant as well because I have 15 properties. Now, when I was starting off, having the first 5 or 6 properties, I really could do everything myself on the back end while working a full-time job, no problem. But now that I have like 15 and I have 75 tenants, I now have a really good team behind me. So I have 2 executive assistants, and then I have a bookkeeper kind of like handling most of that bookkeeping part.
Talk a little bit about this. You were sharing with me before we press record kind of how you're using virtual assistants to help you scale the business and to really handle all of that. We recently did an episode talking about how to hire virtual assistants. But for someone who's using them, how many do you have and how are you training them and how are they working out for you?
Yeah, technically I have 5. The bookkeeper would pay $1,200 per month because he's doing the bulk of the work. And he's based in the Philippines. That's actually like higher than normal full-time pay while he's working only part-time doing our rentals. So it's a great deal for him. And then we also have some VAs who do our help with our marketing piece. And they're paid this base salary, but they're also paid commission on top of it. So they get basically $200 per person that they bring into the property that signs a 1-year lease with us. And then on the baseline, it's about, I think last was like $250 to $350 per month, depending on, what stage of the process they're in. And then I have the executive assistants that work on an hourly basis, $20 per hour, $25 per hour. And they basically help with any of the legal work that we have to take care of. They help solve any tenant requests, tenant issues, etc. So they manage most of the day-to-day operations. So I can mainly focus on acquisitions, finding great deals, going through that acquisition process, signing all the paperwork and things like that. And then, of course, building our brand as well.
So what's the big goal for you? What are you trying to go for? Obviously, you mentioned you had 15 properties, 75 tenants. At what level or what point are you thinking, okay, this is going to be enough, or have you even considered that?
Yeah, so the biggest goal, or the goal I kind of came up with a few years ago, is to own 100 properties. And because that really gets me excited. I'm able to provide a lot of affordable housing for students. I'm in different markets. I have a brand presence. And so that could be like having 20 properties in 5 different cities, or it could be having 10 properties in 10 different cities, whatever, right? I do want to be diversified to a certain extent. So there's definitely some cities that I really love and am interested in investing in, as well as my clients. I do teach this to others as well. I provide mentorship. So I have clients that are doing well across the board. We're probably in over 20 different states by now. 25 different states. Yeah, I'm just really excited to reach that 100 property goal.
That's so cool. I love seeing the vision of where you're headed, and the fact that you're helping other people. It just reminds me that you had mentioned to us offline you had something that you wanted to give away to folks that are interested. Can you tell us what that would be, and then we'll tell them how to get it?
Yeah, sure. So first, you can get my free PDF if you'd like. I know they're going to be posting their own link there. My website is www.newbierealestateInvesting.com/guide. And newbie is spelled NEWBIE. That's www.newbierealestateInvesting.com/guide. And that way you can kind of get in contact with me as well. But basically, what I teach is how to identify the markets this is gonna work very well with, right? What's the market demand? What rents are supported on a per bedroom basis? What are the specific neighborhoods that students like to stay in? What are specific deals that we can like look through together? So, we'll go through the top 3 deals that the client has, and then we'll discuss what are the pros and cons. Then we'll talk about renovating the property, where to add those extra bedrooms, of course, and then the marketing, which is a little bit different, obviously, for students compared to the general public. And we don't only just target students, we also target professionals like residents and fellows are great because they usually work at the local hospital for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. So they have been some of the best tenants I've had. And I would say about 40-50% of my tenants are professionals, residents, fellows, or travel nurses, for example, et cetera.
So for your coaching students, are you giving them like all these frameworks and all these templates and the processes that you've already built? Is that kind of a part of the process?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's one-on-one coaching that I provide as well.
Joey, how interested are you going through his program? I'll send you through it. I feel like this is a great idea. I think you'd be amazing at doing this.
Well, I mean, of the two of us, I definitely wouldn't trust you to be a professional, and so I'd be the one to have to do it. So for sure.
Oh man, Ryan, this has been amazing. I am excited about this idea. I think it's a unique strategy for us to get in real estate. I mean, the thing that you didn't even mention is having 100 homes. Think about the appreciation. Think about the depreciation. In addition to the cash flow, think about the ability to pull cash out, right? To be able to refinance these properties, because this is a commercial deal at this point, right? You're able to, use the net operating income of these businesses, because they're all basically mini commercial businesses that you can then pull cash out. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, you don't have to pay taxes when you take a loan against the real estate, do you?
Not a penny.
Yeah, so this could be one of those things, Tribe, if you're looking to start building passive income streams, and maybe you have to be a little active on the front end like Ryan's talking about, but it seems super interesting. If you were doing this with 5 homes, running a full-time pharmacy gig, my guess is that some others could figure out a way part-time in that 5 to 9 to be doing this as well. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the invite. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Tribe, if you want to follow up on this, you can go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/student housing. We'll make sure we redirect to all the links and all the data that Ryan was sharing with us. And if you found value with this, man, take a screenshot and just post it on social somewhere and tag us. We just love knowing when we've given the content that you're interested in. That way we can keep making more of it. Have a fantastic day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand, so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.